Hello and welcome to Zoomer Hall. I'm Kathleen Kajioka. Today we're going to hear from a couple of artists who I first became familiar with when I was sitting in the halls of the Royal Conservatory waiting for my viola lessons. Their names were permanently affixed to one particular studio, and on occasion when the door was open, you could see the two enormous grand pianos sitting inside. Anagnoson and Kinton were my introduction to the idea of a long-term piano duo. Now, pianists, I'd say, are a lot like tennis players. There are a lot of great ones out there who can play a fantastic singles match. Not so many play well with others. And it takes a really die-hard tennis fan to name you the great doubles teams in history. And that same tennis fan will probably also tell you what makes a doubles match its own particular brand of excitement. Same goes for piano partnerships. James Anagnoson and Leslie Kinton have been playing together for almost 40 years. They are a very rare breed, and we're going to hear just how fantastic their chemistry is today. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Anagnoson and Kinton. Zoomer Hall, Anagnoson and Kinton with two Slavonic dances by Dvorak. We'll be right back with more from this dynamic duo. Stay with us. During this commercial break, we have an audience Q&A. Actually, yes. Yeah, sure. So if anyone has a question, raise your hand and Daria will come and bring a mic. Mm-hmm. Yep. Oh, okay, hang on. Hang on. Okay. Follow me.
Sure. I can't think of another musical performing experience where you would be this close to a co-performer. Does it ever get annoying? Or are you so used to it that's normal for you?
Depends on how much you shuffle your feet. It does not get annoying. It's actually a very different space, but we came down here yesterday, we've envisioned it, and in a funny kind of way, we get your energy even more closely.
Yeah. Were you also talking about two people at one piano? Was that?
Well, and you've got, one of you I noticed is on the black keys while the other one's right underneath the
Right.
white keys, and you're side by side so close your hands. I just wondered if do you ever feel crowded out or?
Not so much in this piece. We did do a piece by Stravinsky called Petrushka. It was the very first big four-hand piece at one piano that we ever did. And the first time we played it with the student turning pages, we got the strangest looks from the students because all through the score are Jim's elbow up, Leslie's wrist down. I mean, you needed traffic lights really to play it, but
But actually, in truth,
yeah.
the keyboard is built for one, and yet there's a great amount of wonderful music, as you just heard, for two people at one piano. Why? Because a composer envisioned a piece that 10 fingers couldn't play. That's really what it comes down to. And is it crowded? Yeah. And it takes some doing? Yeah. But the pieces make it worth it.
And in some ways, there's more written for one piano, four hands, than there is for two pianos. So.
Anybody else have a question? Come on, you guys gotta have a question. Well, right here, this way. Perfect.
Oh, good.
Thank you very much. Wonderful. I'm very excited to be here. I'd just like to know how you two geniuses met one another. How did this happen? I think it must be a good story. Thank you.
I'll tell one half. Jim will tell the rest. We met at the Aspen Music Festival in 1970. We were both students there and studying with the same teacher. Okay.
Just,
Yeah.
kind of cheated that.
Yeah, and it was just by chance. We became very good friends. I went to New York every couple of weeks for lessons, and Jim and I, we just became friends, and we started to play together, and it was just from there. And Jim will take the rest of it.
Well, simply, the first time we sat down, we decided to do two piano recital for the fun of it. The first time we sat down, we played through a Brahms movement. I flew up from New York, and the principal of the Royal Conservatory heard the movement, and he said, "Ma, you boys do this very well. How long you been at it?" Leslie went, "About 11 minutes."
All right, so that's yours. That's yours. 1 minute to air, 1 minute. So if we're gonna get ready for our next
Yep.
segment. So if you're gonna be on that side.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
we're
that's
gonna have
fine.
another Q&A after in our next break. So think of some questions.
So you can take that, or?
You're gonna hold on.
Welcome back to Zoomer Hall. I'm Kathleen Kagioka, and we have a very special event here, which is in fact 4 events in one. It's a live concert, it is a live radio broadcast, a live webcast at classical963fm.com, so you can watch it if you're near a computer, and later on it's going to be an episode of the concert series airing on Vision TV. So we've got all happening here at Zoomer Hall. And today we're with the piano duo Anagnoson and Kinton, who have just played for us some fantastic Dvorak for 4 hands. Now, we're going to have a little chat. Now, almost 40 years, you two have been playing together, and I understand you met at Aspen, which, for those who don't know, is not only a great ski town, it also is home to one of the most important music festivals in North America. Tell us the story about how you first met and ended up having this incredible journey together.
Well, we became friends in Aspen. I was living in my teacher's house, Eugene List's house in New York, and Leslie and I became friends. He was flying into New York, so I said there's guest rooms, and he would stay in the house. We decided to do a 2-piano recital for the fun of it. We decided to do 2 or 3. So I flew up to Toronto, and we went into the concert hall of the Royal Conservatory, and we said, let's do the Brahms Sonata. We decided to learn that. We sat down and we played it, and the principal of the Royal Conservatory came in while we were playing, and we got to the end of the movement, and Leslie looked over, and he said to us, "Ma, you boys do this very well." And he said, "How long have you been at it?" And Leslie looked at his watch and said, 11 minutes. So after that point, many mentors, Eugene List arranged our first concert in Rochester. He brought us backstage after the concert and said, "You guys are so natural right now. You need to, Jim, you need to move to Toronto. You guys are going on the road. Here's my agent's name in London. You guys are a duo." And we were like, "We're a what?" and also Eugene was a huge mentor. Gina Bachauer heard us in the first doing that same Brahms sonata. She's almost the reason I got hired in Toronto, because she was friends with the principal of the conservatory. And Cliff Poole also, great Canadian Cliff Poole and Mark Parsons also heard us, and they arranged a concert at the house. They all encouraged us, do this. So we did.
Leslie, did you have any reservations about taking focus off of your own solo ambitions and starting this duo?
Actually not, because when we first started to play, neither of us, I think, had any intention of having a career as a duo. We were going to just continue building our career as soloists. And what was interesting for me is that I'd never played any legitimate 2-piano works until the very first rehearsal I had with Jim. I'd done concertos, and I'd read through some 1-piano 4-hand works, but never works for 2 pianos like we're playing today that were written for 2 pianos specifically. And as I say, we were going to do it for fun, and then that was going to be it. And about 10 seconds after we started to play, I realized that I was totally wrong. What I really wanted to be was a duo pianist,
10 seconds?
except that I had no idea. and as soon as we played together, I realized I was totally wrong in my projected career path. We were going to be a piano duo, for sure. But whether we could do it professionally or not had to wait for the kind of validation that Jim was talking about with great artists like Gina Bachauer and Eugene List particularly, and Margaret Parsons and Clifford Poole, as Jim was saying, who were a wonderful piano duo and gave us really some fantastic advice and helped us out a lot.
Well, it is a really rare phenomenon, like the permanent piano duo, but the world of the repertoire is so rich. Jim, can you speak?
Yeah, I think neither of us realized there would be enough repertoire to sustain a career. And the truth is, as solo pianists, you have more repertoire than you can ever play. What we did not realize is that in the duo piano rep, every composer has written really a great piece, either for 2 pianos, often for 2 pianos, certainly for 4 hands. And that's kept us interested, fascinated, and given us an enormous amount of music to play and to continue to learn. And we also had when we were, a piano company heard us play in Massey Hall, and it was after we had gotten good reviews in the London Times and the New York Times, and we were sort of trying to get it established, and they said to us, "You guys, any place you play in North America, we will give you pianos." And we just became Have Pianos Will Travel. And suddenly we're taking Rachmaninoff and Mozart and we're playing it all over North America.
Well, the equipment is really half the battle, isn't it? Because
Absolutely.
it's not easy to come upon.
Well, we had many instances where people said, "We want to hire you," and then they said, "What about pianos?" And I said, "What about pianos?" They said, "Well, we don't have 2 pianos. Can you help us?" And then you get into this enormous expense. And so that was a huge break for us.
Well, we are going to hear some more from you. Arensky is up next. Actually, Leslie, can you tell us a bit about this music?
Arensky was actually a wonderful composer. He was not what you call he's not viewed as first tier, and somewhat unfairly actually. His piano trio is in the repertoire, and there are a few other things. But he wrote 4 suites for 2 pianos. And what was interesting was that we knew that Rachmaninoff had written 2 suites for 2 pianos, and what we didn't know until we researched this at the beginning of our career is that Arensky was Rachmaninoff's teacher. And we kept coming across places in Arensky that we'd say, well, gee, that sounds like Rachmaninoff. And of course, we'd have to say, no, wait a minute, Rachmaninoff sounds like Arensky. So obviously the teacher, the student learned from the teacher. So he was an amazing teacher. He taught Scriabin. I think Prokofiev for a while, they didn't like each other very much, given the direction Prokofiev went musically. Arensky was somewhat conservative, but he was a great teacher and really a wonderful composer. And the piece that we're playing is the first suite. We're only going to play the second and third movements, but the second movement is probably the most famous 2-piano piece. It's a waltz, and it's often played by itself.
Okay, live from Zoomer Hall, Anagnoson Kinton with music by Anton Arensky. We're going to hear why 2 pianos are better than 1. The huge sound of two pianos as played by James Anagnoson and Leslie Kinton. Those were two movements from the Suite for Two Pianos, Opus 15 by Anton Arensky. We'll have more live from Zoomer Hall when we come back.
If you just want to say, we're going to do, anybody have some questions? There we go. Okay, so, yeah, you can do this now. Are you ready, Bill? Ready? Can I get you to stand up, please?
I wondered how you choose who plays what. And if a composer, when he does a work like that, actually makes the two parts equally challenging, and if you have an idea of which part you're better to play.
That's a very good question. The answer is, in two piano music, we actually, if we decide we're going to play a piece, we read it through. And we each will come back, because we each, I think, the strength of our duo, I think, is that we sat down and we could play together. But really after that, the strength of our duo is that we're really quite different. So we bring different things to the table. So when we go home and read a part, we read the part and we go, this is the part that's more suited to me, and that's the part that we divide it very, very easily. Four-hand music's a little different.
Yeah, for some reason, it worked out without any conflict at all. I like playing the bass part in traditional repertoire, and Jim likes playing the treble or the primo and secondo. And for some reason in 20th century repertoire, when we did Petrushka and the Rite of Spring, I like playing the primo and he likes playing the secondo. It just worked out that way. And so there's never been a conflict. And as a matter of fact, it's interesting. We do one of the Slavonic dances where we did reverse. This is on our recording of all 16. But that was because when we were touring, we were only touring with two of them, and we thought it would be probably better to switch. But I'm always most comfortable playing the secondo, except in 20th century repertoire, as I say. So.
I had a question regarding repertoire over the years. Has there been a piece that you've come back to more than the rest, something like a war horse over the years?
Yeah, there are. We don't like to use the term war horse because, but yeah, there are certain pieces that are, let's call them iconic, okay? But absolutely, the next piece we're playing actually, the Brahms Variations on a Theme of Haydn. Unfortunately, because of time, we can't play the whole thing, but it's one of the great works of the repertoire. The Mozart Two Piano Sonata is another one. The Bartók Sonata for two pianos and percussion, which we're playing next year, we've played many times. And so there are certain works and certain concertos, the Mozart Concerto, the Poulenc Concerto, and the Concerto by Martinu for two pianos and orchestra. But there's so much repertoire that we're never going to get to it. I think as Jim intimated, it's a fraction of the solo repertoire, but a fraction of infinity is still a lot. So we'll never get to all of it.
But I think what's interesting is that those iconic pieces, the Mozart Sonata and the Brahms Haydn, were two of the first pieces we chose to play. And I think it's one of the true blessings of our career is that we've gotten to play them hundreds of times. And I guarantee you, as I tell my students many, many times, we didn't play them in that first concert the way we play them now. We've grown into them, we grow and change, we listen, and that's an amazing thing to have in your life. But the Mozart and the Brahms Haydn were two of the very, very first. That's what the Bartók, actually.
Yeah, I very quickly, our friends in the world of theater get to do previews. Yeah, we don't. Virtually every concert that we play is opening night. So it does take all those concerts to play it in. But it doesn't mean the first concert wasn't good. It's just, it just takes that long. These are great masterpieces.
Yeah, but I don't see you listening to tapes of that first concert.
No, absolutely not. Definitely not.
Okay. All right. Oh, I see.
So can I get you back in your seat? So we're going to begin again with another interview. Just at the end of the interview, grab his mic and I'll grab his. Okay. How much? 20 seconds to air, 20 seconds? Who's having fun?
Welcome back to Zoomer Hall. I'm Kathleen Kajioka here with the amazing piano duo Anagnoson and Kinton. They just graced us with really rich, sonorous music by Anton Arensky. Now, as I was watching you guys, I'm a string player, and so, when I'm playing a string quartet, for example, I can see my colleagues and their body language, and I can read that way, how to be together. You guys can barely see each other. So how does it work?
Well, that's an interesting question. We look, there are certain places we still look because there's a spontaneity about when it's going to happen. But actually, in the best string quartet rehearsals, visual's huge, but I've seen I think it was the Tokyo Quartet that I saw made a string quartet play with their backs to each other because it really is all about listening. So we listen, we are fanatic fuss budgets when it comes to listening. And when you listen when you really tune in, you can hear the subtlest nuance of taking time, and you go with it. We just did that in the Arensky 2 or 3 times, things we've never done like that before.
Incredible. Incredible. Like the exactitude of when your fingers hit the keys is kind of astounding. Was it like that kind of from the beginning?
Yeah, but
Yes.
we played all. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's okay. We didn't have to work. Well, we did work at that part of it, but we played together very easily right from the start. We tended to breathe the same way, feel phrases the same way. It doesn't mean that we didn't come with different ideas, but when it came down to actually playing the music, it was just very easy to play together. And then from there, we worked extremely hard on balances and so forth.
Now, you were saying earlier that one of the strengths of your duo is that you're actually quite different. I'm curious to know how you would characterize yourselves.
Well, we've given each other nicknames. I was trained very much in the classical tradition, and that's my temperament a little bit. My teacher was a student of Cortot and Serkins, so I came through Mozart and Scarlatti and Bach and so forth.
And so what kind of
And then
characteristics is
Jim
that?
was trained by one of the great romantic pianists, whoever, which was Eugene Liszt, and we both met in Beethoven. So because we both played Beethoven very much the same way, and we agree 100%, and we learned from each other that way. But because of the non-legato approach in a lot of classical repertoire and the other approach in romantic, we gave each other the nicknames of Ben Marcato and Ben Legato. So we were, which is, by the way, an Italian term for very legato and very Marcato. So, but that's what we came with. But then we developed our playing based on what the other person was doing,
Does this
and
ever lead
became
to
better
sort of
players because of it.
serious conflicts or anything?
Well, I think when we first, yes, of course it does. I mean, and I think that's fine. I think those conflicts were difficult when you're first starting because you believe so deeply that it's your way or the highway, and it's difficult to give in on all kinds of differences. And I think really what happened, and that was true for each of us, what happened is we played. I actually remember playing in Wigmore Hall, and we were very uncertain about tempo and the third. And suddenly, as we played, and we realized it was working, and we were getting good reviews and great papers, and people liked it, we suddenly stopped, I think, each of us, and realized we do have differences, and that's a good thing. So now as we went to rehearsals, we started backing off. And the one thing that ultimately we both realized early is the learning process is difficult, but once we take the show on the road and play a piece, we actually never disagree.
Yeah, we've never reached an impasse, ever.
We come at one with what we want to do, and we never have any issues with the piece.
Oh, amazing. No wonder you've lasted so long. Well, we're going to hear some more music now, and this is a great example of the fact that two piano and four-hand repertoire is actually quite foundational in classical music, because there's a lot of famous orchestral music that started off as this medium. So we're going to hear some Brahms. Leslie, want to
Well, the Brahms originally was for two pianos, and then he orchestrated from that, and I actually had to make some changes. We say some compromises in the orchestral version, because it couldn't. A full orchestra couldn't do the stuff that two people can do. So
Really?
yeah, so minor changes, but yeah.
This year, Emmanuel Axe's idea was to do a concert with the Toronto Symphony where duo would play a two-piano version, and the symphony would play the orchestral. So they asked us to play the Brahms Haydn, which we're about to play, and the TS played it after we played it. And Manny and Stuart Goodyear played La Valse, and then the TS played it. It was so cool and so interesting to hear in the same concert on the same night the same piece in each version.
Amazing. Well, we're going to hear it now from Anagnoson Kinton, the variations on a theme by Haydn, and a shortened version by Brahms. such a rare thing and such a rich thing, and we are so lucky at Zoomer Hall to have had James Anagnoson and Leslie Kinton, longtime piano duo. That was music by Johannes Brahms, a theme and 3 of the variations from his theme and variations on a what is variations on a theme by Haydn? Theme, variations. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was really such an incredible thing. These two have been a rich part of our community here in Toronto and Canada at large and the world at large, bringing this beautiful repertoire to life. So thanks again.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Now remember, you have been part of a 4-in-1 presentation here at Zoomer Hall, a live concert, a live radio broadcast, a live webcast, and a taping of it that will be an episode of the concert series airing on Vision TV all in one here at Zoomer Hall. I'm Kathleen Kajioka. Thank you so much for joining us. See you next time.
Well, the Glenn Gould School is Canada's answer to the great schools in the world. Over Curtis, Juilliard. It parachuted into the Royal Conservatory 15, 17 years ago, and at this point we have 120 students, 125. And Friday night, Sir Roger Norrington is conducting our orchestra in Kerner Hall. He's rehearsing with them right now. And if you come Friday night to Kerner Hall, they will blow your mind. We've become an amazing, amazing place. So it's an honor to be dean of it. Thanks for asking.
How do the students get there?
They audition. Just like every other performing arts school, it's audition, you audition and you're in or out. Yeah, it's tough. But what's tough is that we're so small. So in piano, we have 21 piano students from first year undergrad to second year artist diploma grad. So sometimes there's room for 2 when you have 55 people playing. And sometimes when I meet them earlier, I'll say to her, don't get your feelings hurt. You're often very, very, very fine pianists. We just don't have room.
Are they all from the conservatory? Or?
No, they're from around the world.
Okay, stand by. We're ready on the floor. Sorry. I'm getting yelled at by hungry people in there. Okay, stand by. Ready to the floor. Yep. In 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. In 5, 4. start taking out some of the chairs.